two things I want to kind of draw attention to that you have all kind of talked about on some level. One is food fears.
Yeah.
Foods that
Bad.
Yes, that are considered in your brain, they are bad. And I wasn't going to even talk about my journey, and I won't go into it for time's sake, but for me, there was this category of food that I was like, you don't eat that.
Right.
Especially the older I got. I was told, like, once you turn 30, you can't eat bagels. And I'm like, I love bagels. But, like, I didn't. I wouldn't eat bagels. I wouldn't eat donuts. I stopped eating, like, treats and things because I became obsessed with aging well and looking a certain way and what everyone was telling me I couldn't have, and so I didn't have it. And so I went through this process of food fears where at the beginning of the week I was like, one morning I'm gonna have a bagel. I'm gonna put cream cheese on it, and I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna enjoy it. And I'm not gonna rush through it. But I had to train myself to move past those things. And I think it translates in the same way to, you don't wear that bathing suit if you're after a certain weight or age especially. And so there's different things that are locked into our brains that we've considered truths that are not truths. And you kind of have to drag them into the light and expose it for what it is.
Right.
For your mind to wrap itself around the fact that that's not true. That's not true for me. That's just
Starvation
not true.
is not going to get you anywhere.
Yes.
I think is one that the American culture is if you eat less calories, if you don't eat this food, if you eat that food, if you and I know that it works for some people. I think that that's fine, but there is no one size fits all. There is no bad way to do any of it. There's your own journey. I worked with a midwife a long time ago who said that there are 100 ways to do something. 99 of them are okay, and one is wrong. And I think that that's really an important way to approach this.
Yeah.
There's 100 ways to look. None of them are wrong. But if you are uncomfortable with where you are, then that's your one.
Yeah.
Right? And the first thing I think to do is probably therapy. I mean, honestly, it's probably getting into therapy and starting to unpack what it means, what it means to you to be overweight or to be underweight, because we have people who can't gain weight in certain cultures. That doesn't look good either on them. That's the opposite. What does it mean to you? What maybe helped bring you to this point?
Yeah.
And because if you have a metabolic condition that's going to sabotage you the whole way, well, then it's a commitment to fixing the metabolic syndrome as much as you can, right? If you have a different metabolic syndrome, which is obesity at that point, morbid obesity becomes its own metabolic syndrome, then there's a commitment. You going under that surgery was not an easy decision when he's saying stuff like you might not live.
Right.
Right? Like I think, and taking medications that you don't know the side effects of and there's risks associated with. Yeah. And there's a stigma too.
Really
there's
is.
a big stigma about taking meds.
Just the term weight loss makes me like, ugh,
right.
A
metabolic correction.
Well, a couple of things that you said I wanted to address. When I decided to have the surgery and I realized that there was a chance that I wasn't going to live, at that point, I was okay with that.
Right. Because you were already there.
Because I was miserable. But when you talk about foods that you can't eat, like that you can't. So my surgery makes it so that, if I eat too much sugar.
Yeah. You really
like
can't.
I really pay for it.
Yeah.
But there are no foods that I can't ever eat.
Right.
Okay? But because my goals are what my goals are, and I have no frame of reference. I don't ever remember weighing what I weigh now. So I can't look back and say,
that's my goal weight, or that's what I want to look like.
I've already surpassed the goal weights that my doctor set for me.
Yeah.
Good for you.
And so when I keep in mind what my goals are, there are lots of foods that I won't eat.
You choose not to eat.
Right.
Not because you're afraid of them,
Right.
not because you believe them to be bad, but because it's choice based on a goal. I love that
Yeah.
perspective.
And because I just hold some beliefs that whether you're heavy or skinny or whatever, there are just some things that everybody knows to be true. Like donuts are sold in a dozen. You're meant to eat more than one.
Right.
If you weren't,
They would be sold in a single?
right. I'm smart. So you can believe what I'm saying. But so I know that if I eat a donut, I'm gonna eat a couple donuts.
Right.
And I
And that-
love donuts. But so sometimes I will, I'll compromise with myself and I'll get a couple donut holes.
Right.
You know,
So again, it's not a no, it's a
Right.
learning to work with it.
right.
Right?
And the minute you put limits on someone,
Ah, that's super important. Yeah, say that.
you almost create an atmosphere where there's going to be failure.
Yep.
So if I tell myself, look,
Can't have
this
donuts.
food that you love,
Yes.
I'm never going to eat it again. I mean, that's ridiculous.
That's dumb. And I mean,
You know?
that's self-sabotage.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you've set a goal that's impossible, and now all you're going to think about is the goal.
Yeah, yeah. But then there are foods that I know, and I have this conversation with my girlfriend all the time. Like, I've been eating too much of this lately, so I need to get back on track. It's not, well, crap, I failed now, and I'm gonna,
Right.
I just need to get back on track. But it's never, I can't.
I think that's
Yeah.
important. I think getting to a point where, that's such healthy food thought. Like that, I guess we have so much unhealthy food speak. That's such a healthy way of approaching it. And to ask you, did you ever think that you would be able to have that kind of conversation? Because that's not how you speak to yourself when you're back in. I don't feel like people ever talk to themselves in that way when they're in the process of trying and failing, the cycle of weight loss.
Yeah.
It's all or nothing.
Yeah, and there were times when I would have such negative self-talk that I would just shut the conversation down.
Right.
I wouldn't even think about certain things. Another thing that I really want to point out is that what I have done is something that very few people can do by themselves. Fortunately, right now, I have an amazing support. I know you guys are tired of hearing it, but my girlfriend, she,
Yeah.
is a beast. Like, she's done Ironmans and she does all this. She's not to my level yet, but she does a lot of running.
It's a
And
journey.
she's very, and so I have that to kind of tether to as far as food. And I'll ask her for her input, and I'll say I'm thinking about getting this for lunch, and her face, she doesn't nag, she doesn't.
And if you got it, it would be okay.
Yeah, but she understands where I am, where I was, and she is looking out for me. Like,
Yeah.
she's a
Support,
cheerleader for me.
accountability.
Yeah, so knowing that she only wants my best interest,
Right.
it makes it easier for me to make the decisions I need to make, knowing that I've got somebody in my corner.
Right. And I do think when we talk about, in medicine, one of the easy analogies is when we talk about quitting smoking. If you live in a house of smokers, the success rate of you quitting smoking is 0.
Right.
Right. And so people need to also acknowledge that this may not be the time that I can address this entirely because I'm not surrounded by supportive people. I'm a kid in a household of people who are not going to support my eating goals or my weight loss goals, or I'm in a situation right now where I'm in grad school and I'm working and I'm this and I can only do so much. So I think also realizing that it doesn't have to be yesterday. That you can say, this is, I'm going to do what I can do. I'm going to prioritize, maybe I'll get a counselor, maybe I'll work on my sleep health, and maybe I'll, work on actually hydrating myself a little bit occasionally, and that's it. And I'll worry about this when this immediate stress thing is done. I think is also okay, because if you don't, if you're not in complete rock bottom where you have no choice,
Yeah.
then you're in that, sort of phase in the middle. There are things that you can do, I think, to work on psychologically being healthy to get there. But if you are in a situation, it's not a failure on your part if you can't move the bar. You got to take stock of what's around you.
Yeah.
And the other side of that is like you had mentioned, Kathleen, like when you got into therapy first, and that was kind of one of your tools that you used. Initially, I was dropping weight so fast that nothing was wrong with me.
Right.
You know what I mean? I was like, I had a big S on my chest.
Yeah.
I have just recently, in the last month or so, begun counseling again. Because now I'm dealing with this new person that I am and having to figure all that out, and so I guess it's the idea of never, even after you think you've accomplished the goals that you set, or even you did accomplish the goals that you set, there is this forward motion that you have to continue to make.
Losing weight is not going to solve all your problems.
No.
No. Suddenly this is what alcoholics find once you've stopped drinking, all of the things are not better.
Yeah.
Like it's not all suddenly.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
It's a realization. It's
Yeah.
a moment of
And you do see the world from a
painstaking
different
truth.
perspective. Like people don't talk about that part, that people treat you differently.
Yeah.
And that sucks,
Yeah.
because we know that it's fleeting. Like looks are fleeting, weight is fleeting. Like
But they do treat
it
you
fluctuates, and people do treat you differently, and that's disappointing.
You mean depending upon what size you are?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
You sort of think like, oh, I have great. Yeah, I mean, and you do. Like I've had great friends no matter what size I've been. But and your friends don't really change, of course. But people on the street, those people, or people that you see once a year, they're like, oh my God, you look so good. You look like an absolute garbage can before.
Right.
And look at you now, and you're just like in Walmart picking up scissors or something, and you're like, oh my God, I did not
I
anticipate.
used to have to carry around a sick bag thinking I was going to see you.
Oh.
But now,
Right.
Yeah.
That's how
Look
it
at
translates.
you
But
now.
that's what it translates into your head.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Well, and I think that is, I'm so glad you brought that up because I think about what you were talking about with your daughters. How we compliment people, how we talk to the people we love, whether or not you're even consciously thinking about, oh, this is the weight you are. We don't talk about weight in our house. We don't talk about calories in our house.
No.
We don't.
Good night.
But when I think about, when I visit family sometimes and they're like, you look so good. Have you lost weight? And, and they're not doing anything wrong, but it does highlight a thought pattern that it's like, I have this immediate like, oh, shield up, like protect my child, because we don't have those conversations very intentionally. And and in some cases, I think it's a generation thing.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. I didn't even think about how you look at people differently. That's eye-opening for me because I know how we talk is going to train the people around us. But is it what they say to you? Is it how they look at you? Like, what is that
just
experience
excitement.
like?
I mean, I'm sure that you feel this too. Like people, and I'm not even talking about a significant, super significant change, but like I said, in Walmart, all over the place, people just come up to you and they're like so overjoyed for you, like you're holding a puppy, but it's just yourself in a ratty t-shirt doing chores on a Saturday, and it's unexpected and it is nice, like you said, and it definitely is a generation thing, right? Like if I have a former student, I taught at University of Lynchburg, like they would never come up to me and say that a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And it is older people just trying to be nice. So it's like it's kindness in a way that is like will shake you back to a deep-seated fear, right?
Yes,
Like,
yes, it'll shake you back into that.
because you're like,
I
oh
can
my God,
never
I just
regain
got
this.
this.
What if
Yes,
I
your walls
regain
go
the weight?
up.
What if I, will they not like me?
Yeah.
Like, I know it's just that sort of
Yeah.
ugly cycle.
It is.
Yeah.
And with people from older generations, it's almost almost that is kind of
Backhanded?
just kind of laced with finally.
Oh.
Ooh, nice.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yep.
Like
Like they've been waiting.
my ex-wife's grandmother was always very healthy, but she was from a generation where if you were overweight, there was something wrong with you. You
Yep.
lacked willpower.
You lacked willpower.
You lacked some character element. You know, and so sometimes the compliments don't translate the way people want them. I spent my kids' entire childhood so overweight. Even if there wasn't audible conversation about weight,
Unspoken.
there was always a conversation about weight happening in my house.
Yeah, no, that's true.
So you think
And
it's
I-
almost like you almost need to address the unspoken.
Well, actually, I'm saying
Yep.
the opposite, because
Okay.
I damaged relationships with some of my children because I saw them struggling with the same stuff that I struggled with, and I came at them from a place of, I would really like for you to avoid
Yes.
all the things that I went through.
I know exactly that. I experienced that from my parents.
Yes.
So I experienced that from my my father, and so I think you have to be careful, but at the same time, trying to tell kids anything. I have many teenagers in my house now, and if I told them the house was on fire, they'd roll their eyes and be like, whatever. As the smoke is pluming into their room.
Stop exaggerating, Mom.
Oh my God, you're so dramatic. And so I think I did have a conversation with my my teenager who is naturally very thin, because she brought up that she was concerned that she's not as strong. That everybody points out how strong her younger sister is. And I said, okay, you guys have very different physiques. Do you want to be stronger? Like, you don't really enjoy exercise, which I don't either. So do you want to do something else? And she's and if so, I will help you. But then my brain was about to do the you could. And she said, yes, I do. I want to think about it. She's like, I think I want to start playing tennis again. And I was like, awesome, I'll play tennis with you if you want to play tennis, because I'm terrible. And I could use some practice. And I think that was me reining in my parental, well, you need to, you should.
Yeah, and I have one specific daughter that really struggles with weight.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I think, maybe somewhat unfortunately, she has a great self-image, like great body positivity.
Yep.
I have another daughter who would come to my ex-wife and I and say, I really want to lose this many pounds, or I really want this. And so we would say, well, I would say, well, I have learned lots of stuff. Do you want some help? And she would say, yeah. And sometimes people who are struggling in that area want help until it's actually offered. Then either in the way it's offered, or because who knows how to offer that sort of assistance, that sort of.
Again, it has to be self-motivated.
Yeah,
You can
you
offer the
can't.
Yeah.
assistance all you want,
Cannot.
but until it is something that is motivated from internally, unless you lock you
Yeah.
in a cage.
Right.
And that's why I like what you said to your daughter. You didn't tell her what to do. It wasn't like, stop thinking that way.
Right, no.
Or
I do.
like-
Don't get me wrong. I say all the wrong things all the rest of the time.
Well,
Trust
I mean,
me.
nobody gets it right all
No,
the time.
because parenting
Yes.
is awful. But that was one of those moments where I think I had so much experience and personal trauma. I hate throwing around the trauma word, but experience. So much personal
there's
experience.
trauma there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I knew better than to say something
Yeah.
aggressive there. The last thing I want, she already is a high school kid surrounded by nothing but horridness.
Yeah.
You cannot pay me enough to go back to high school.
No.
I don't want her, she's at risk of going the other way and being, food challenges. So I was like, yeah, we can play tennis. I'll play tennis. But again, I was afraid of how I offered it. I felt like, if the little angels popped up, the parental angels, like, it's a trap.
and like you said, it has to be self-motivated.
Yes,
And
it
there are
does.
times when we're not to that point yet.
Yeah.
But we have these little moments of strength where we say out loud, man, I really wish I could lose this weight.
Yeah.
It's just a little window, but it's not enough to actually, you haven't
Push
gotten
it.
to the point where you
Yeah.
are ready.
Yeah,
I
you
think
have
it's
to want it.
stages of change.
Yeah.
They talk a lot about that with weight loss, and I think that's an important thing to acknowledge for people. And I talk to my patients about that. I'm like, I know you wanted to talk about your weight, but where are you in wanting to, where are you in this process? Are you in the, I wish I weighed less? Are you in the, I think about this all the time and it's ruining my life? Are you in the, we need to refer you to the bariatric team to talk about
Yeah.
direct intervention?
Yeah.
Because each one of those is a different conversation.
Yeah. And what is your why? So I have a friend who he has plantar fasciitis in both of his feet, and he went to his doctor who said, you will not have relief until you lose weight. Like, he is in constant pain, it's chronic, and he is overweight. And so for him, his why was, I need to be able to breathe. Like, I'm just in pain all the time. And so I think a lot of times what you want for yourself and what you're able to choose for yourself can be elevated when there is this other thing underneath it. So healthy for him, because of the pain he was experiencing, was weight loss. Otherwise, he was not unhealthy, but there was a pain, like you talked about, you were completely healthy, but you were obese and you wanted to do something about that. And so for him, he was completely healthy, he's obese, but the pain in his feet was so unbearable that he lost weight.
Yeah.
And it was a huge motivator for him.
We are seeing more young men falling into the category of eating disorders and things now. It seems like we've starting to see more men falling into that traditional adolescent female problem with the eating disorders and the binge eating and things like that. There seems to be an uptick in that culturally. And I'm sure it has to do, again, with, where would you like to start? Social media?
I was going to say, that's a conversation that I think I really want to dig into, is the uptick that is coming with this adolescence generation, but also trauma, because I think trauma does play largely into body image.
Absolutely.
And the different
It's
things that
generational.
it is very generational. Yes. And there's a book, and I never throw out a book because, what I like to read is not going to be for everyone else, but it's called The Body Keeps the Score. And it talks a lot about the impact of trauma on your body. And so many studies have been done with kids who were abused, or kids who, witnessed violent behavior, and alongside kids of the same age and of the same social status and of the same, ability side by side, who didn't experience that. And obesity is one of the things that the kids who have experienced abuse or violent behavior or this other side of it, it's a large part of their future. And so there's something there, and I think that it's a little terrifying. But I do want to kind of lean into that. Maybe we'll do that as another segment, because I think it's when you talk about, it's so frustrating to want something for yourself and you can't make it happen. Right. And so whether it is PCOS or whether it is a way that you've lived for so long, you don't know how to turn it around. I think also, if it's trauma and if it's something that is so far beneath the surface that you can't even see it yet, what does that look like?
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that up because when we were talking about like getting a therapist earlier too, I wanted to mention like I don't think I've ever talked about weight loss in therapy because like what you just said, like it's all the other things like it's depression, it's sadness, it's anxiety that make you make a quick impulsive decision that wasn't necessarily a decision you would have wanted to make or depression and now, all the things, right? Like I don't have to probably tell anybody about that here or anywhere else because it's like that is also so tied in with it, but it never gets talked about. They only talk about what you look like physically, whether that's better or worse than the last time that somebody saw you.
I have a funny story for you. I decided to go to therapy maybe 5-6 years ago. It was before COVID because everything is either before or after COVID now.
It's true. It's like that point of reference.
ACBC is totally different now. So before COVID, I went to therapy and I sat down in my therapist's office and she said, well, what brings you into therapy? And I said, I want to lose weight. And she went, in mine, I was like 30 pounds lighter than I was when I decided to actually do something about my weight. And we sat there and I think a year into it, she said, and it was really interesting to watch. Like I came in thinking, I want to lose weight. I'm going to go to therapy to lose weight. And what we discovered was, sure, there were many, many factors but I had done what many people do is just take whatever it is that I don't want to deal with and I put it in a little box and shove it under the bed with my foot like that. And so for me, it was losing weight was going to be, the losing weight was my canary in the coal mine. That was my body being like, hey,
that's a good point.
There's something else that you need to deal with. And I know that you have decided that if you got skinny, you would be healthy. Again, like if you stop drinking, you will completely negate all of whatever it is that made you drink to begin with. I think that going to therapy was an opportunity for me to get some of my house in order.
Yeah.
I did not lose any weight in therapy. It wasn't until later, but now, years later, I have made decisions and gotten healthier to be able to change my mindset so that
therapy rules.
so that and the thing is that this other side of it is I'm not in therapy right now, but I might, there's always, I feel like everybody should go to therapy on semi-regular basis because life continues. But I think that now I'm in a place where it's not about the weight anymore. It's about, did I eat a vegetable today? Did I, did I treat my body right today? Should I doom scroll on Instagram tonight or should I go to bed and get good sleep? Because my friend has asked me to come do a podcast, which is supposed to not have a camera.
I could just sit here and keep talking about this and we could totally keep going, but and we'll continue this, but we'll close it down for now. Thank you guys. Yeah. I'm surprised that our microphones were not just like cut off. But I'm thankful.
You're done.
You're done. This is way too long. But I do want to say thank you to you guys. You've been so vulnerable. And so thank you guys. Thanks for joining. Thanks for listening. And hope that you will join us next time on And So Much More.